Why yes, I did cut my hair. This is the shortest my hair has been since I've been born. Only facts here, people. Hi everyone, my name is Holly, and in today's video I'm going to be sharing with you all of the books that I read in April. I just realized that my pillow is covering my Joe Abercrombie books. No. So I read a total of 7 books this month, which is so good for me. I'm so proud of myself, and I think it's because of my unread books being turned around. It's honestly so freaking motivating to read a book knowing that I'll be able to reward myself with a beautiful spine. For those of you who have been inspired to do the same, have you started reading more because of it? I'd be really curious to know. Which leads me into the new thing that I will be doing in every single one of my wrap-ups. So right after I give you my thoughts and my rating on a book, I'm going to take you over to my bookshelf and we're going to flip the book over. So let's go ahead and start with the very first book that I read in April, and that is Pet Sematary by Stephen King. I have an entire reading vlog dedicated to this book that I'll link down below for you. Darren and I went hiking to go look for a cemetery, and it's just so fun, so go check it out. This is my very first exposure to Stephen King. I'm not really sure why I was never interested before. My brain is just constantly running on fantasy, and I know he has a fantasy series, but we just never crossed paths, and the new movie motivated me to pick up Pet Sematary, and I'm so glad that I did. This book is so iconic. It follows a family who move into this house, and the neighbor across the street warns them of the busy road and the big tanker trucks that drive on it every day, and then proceeds to take the family to this trail that's in their backyard that leads to the cemetery that is full of dead pets. It's kind of like a community cemetery. It has a lot of history, but the neighbor warns them to not go any farther because if they do, they will eventually get to the ancient burial ground where if you bury something there, it will rise and come back very evil. I would say that half of this book is traditional horror and the rest is kind of an exploration of human grief and behavior. To me, the most terrifying scenes weren't the deaths or the resurrections. Well, okay, the ending is absolutely horrifying. There's a scene between family members in this at a funeral home where rational humans behave in ways that are just absolutely horrible. It's one of the most saddest scenes I have ever read in a book, and Stephen King really explores that we're the ones who contain the monsters. Not Hufflepuffs though. We're the sweetest of them all. That isn't to say that this book isn't filled with moments that make chills go down your spine, because there definitely are, but this book was just fun. It doesn't really matter if you know where the plot is heading because Stephen King finds ways to get you hooked. I've seen the original movie. I knew exactly what was going to happen, but King plants these bombs in the narrative that explode as you read. I ended up giving this one 4 out of 5 stars. I am definitely a Stephen King fan. I wouldn't call myself a constant reader, but I am 1% on my way there. Alrighty, so this is where I had Pet Sematary. Let's now flip it. The next book I read was The Dragon Republic by R.F. Kuang. This is the sequel to The Poppy War, which I read last year and it ended up being one of my favorite books, so I was very highly anticipating this sequel. It comes out in August and I was very lucky enough to get an e-arc of it, and I started it immediately because the way The Poppy War ends is like a kick in the ribs, and if I'm being totally honest, and no spoilers I promise, but the way that this one ends, I feel like is even rougher. Much of the story is pulled directly from Chinese history and culture, especially war times, and this story continues that brutal sentiment, and holy crap, this book is dark and it hit home for me within my weak heart. Ren is dealing with the aftermath of the ending of the Poppy War, and we all know that the decisions she made were definitely not the smartest, and she is dealing with the consequences from that. She is is addicted to opium. She suffers from severe PTSD. She even cuts herself and leaves the wounds open because she doesn't think that there are any other options for her, and even other characters are doing the same but in other morbid ways. The main point of this plotline, without giving away any spoilers, is that Ren is having to choose which group of people to trust more to help her get her revenge. One group in particular was to build a republic. They want to overthrow the warlord system and restructure how the government works across the empire. So the world in this is definitely expanded, and we get to see other cultures and also even more modern weapons. The Dragon Republic also adds a whole new element that we didn't see in its predecessor, and that is navy battles on the high seas. So our characters have to deal with monsoons, seasickness, and enemy cannons. Now, I do have a negative that showed up while I was reading this, and it was also kind of prominent in the Poppy War, but I felt like, for me anyways, the book sagged in the middle just a little bit. Another negative thing is, we all know Ren makes very bad decisions in the Poppy War, and that never bothered me, but in this she makes two, you know, questionable decisions, and I've never raged more in my life. I was so angry, but let's not talk about that right now. All in all, I ended up giving this one 4.25 out of 5 stars. It definitely doesn't suffer from the second book woes. For those of you who are wondering, is there gonna be a third book? If you thought this was a duology, you're wrong. There's definitely going to be a third book, and I need it. The next book I decided to pick up on a whim was The Sisters of the Winterwood by Rena Rosner. This is a magical realism story following a family who live in this snowy, foresty little German village. One night, the father finds out that his father is dying, so he needs to pack up and leave immediately. And instead of saying to his wife,
"Hey, I'll be gone for a while. Be sure to take care of my 2 little girls,"
he, for some reason, forces her to go with them. There's no reason for the mother to go with him and leave these 2 little girls in a cottage all by themselves, surrounded by horrible beasts and people who want to kidnap them. They even tell their oldest daughter, "Hey, we're leaving, but your youngest sister's life is in your hands." It didn't make any sense, but anyways, they reveal to the family that they can turn into swans and bears. Also, really quick, the family suffers from favoritism. They tell the oldest child that she is fat, and she actually feels the need to suck in her belly around her parents, and they tell the other one that she's the prettiest. So awful a parent's award goes to. Do you just feel the sarcasm radiating off of me? So the 2 girls proceed to attempt living all by themselves and do a horrible job at it. Seriously, day 1, and they can't do anything right, and it was infuriating. They both become absolutely boy crazy. It was so over the top. In fact, there were makeout sessions every single chapter, like really detailed, tongue slobbery, I will bite your lip and make you bleed makeout sessions. Please make it stop. I normally don't have live reactions for books when I'm reading, but I did for this one on my Instagram stories and on Goodreads because I was so disappointed. I expected this to be a 5-star read, and I feel cheated because of that. I didn't get the folklore I was promised. I didn't get the fairy tale setting. I didn't get the lyrical writing, unless you want to call the verse that half this book is written in lyrical, even though it was just regular sentence mushed together. Also, this book is marketed as adult. Don't you freaking dare. This is Twilight level YA. Surprisingly, I rated this 2 stars on Goodreads, but day after day, I just want to lower that so bad to 1. So I'm deciding on 1.5 out of 5 stars. Like, I honestly feel trolled. Like, I don't get it. So I was gonna go on to the book I DNF'd, but let's kind of up the mood here really quick. So I decided to pick up Sharp Ends by Joe Abercrombie. This is a collection of short stories that take place within the First Law universe. Going into this, I kind of knew I was really going to enjoy because it's freaking Joe Abercrombie, people. I love him to death, and I will say that I loved, like absolutely loved some stories in this, and others I didn't love. But we do get to see different perspectives of some really big events that happen in the original trilogy and in some of the standalones. If you have read and loved the First Law trilogy, this is a must-have. I feel like I gained a lot of information from this, and I feel ready now for his new series that comes out in September. But it's also sad knowing that I don't have any more Abercrombie books on my TBR. But September, be here already. I ended up giving this one 3.5 out of 5 stars. And for those of you who keep asking me, Holly, will you make a video about how to read Joe Abercrombie's books in order? It's coming, people. May 11th, that video will be live for you. I think I want to put sharp ends over here, so I'll put it here. The next book I picked up was 16 Ways to Defend a Walled City by K.J. Parker, and I very unfortunately DNF'd this one when 100 pages in. The first 20 pages are very promising. It opens up with our character Oren traveling to the city of Classis for some rope. Oren reminds me of a character who would be in a Joe Abercrombie book. He's very sarcastic and funny, and he complains like every freaking dialogue. He's definitely a ball buster. While he's talking to a clerk, he looks outside and notices that there are buildings on fire and pirates are raiding the city. As fate would have it, the military decides, since Oren witnessed the attack, that he should be the one to defend it. My problem here is, my god, does this character ramble. The main character's dialogue goes on and on and on about like 10 different topics in one paragraph, to where I would forget what the original topic was. It's like listening to your great-grandparent talk about how they had to carry all of their school supplies barefoot up a hill every day. We've all heard that story, right? I was bored out of my mind and I wanted to love this. I still do, and it's been sitting on my nightstand since the beginning of April, and I dreaded picking it up, and that's when I know I need a DNF a book. I don't know if I want to put this on my shelf or not. It wasn't bad. Maybe I just wasn't in the right mindset right now, so maybe I will. This can go beside Pet Sematary. The next book I have here is a graphic novel, and that is Bully Wars Volume 1 by Scotty Young and Aaron Connolly. Guess what? It's the first day of high school. Ugh. Not when you live in Rottenville, the meanest, the baddest, the bully brewing town in the world, where bullies run rampant with swirlies and stolen lunch money and wads of gum. The story follows 4 pretty prominent main characters, one of them being Rufus, who has been this infamous bully his entire life, and he's so excited to go to high school because he has many new nerds to squash, but he quickly realizes that he is not the kingpin anymore. He finds out that there is a thing called Bully Wars, where all of the bullies compete to be the one bully in control for the school year, and 3 nerdy kids end up teaming up with Rufus and making a deal with him. If he wins the Bully Wars, then they won't get bullied. I loved I Hate Fairyland, and Scotty Young yet again invites me into this world that is so bright and vibrant, but instead of gore and magic, we have dad jokes and toilet humor. If you don't like fart jokes and vomit, this might not be for you, but for me, I found it hilarious. I honestly felt like I was watching a TV show from when I was a kid. 90s cartoons like Recess, Hey Arnold, Doug are very prominent in this. Those classic exaggerated expressions and those schoolyard tropes are very evident. Some of my favorite panels are like the full page spread. Like, look how colorful and just fun that looks. I ended up giving this one 4.5 out of 5 stars. I'm honestly so sad that the Goodreads rating for this is really low, and I basically need volume 2 in my hands. And the final book I decided to pick up was The Monster of Elendhaven. This book releases in September and follows 2 pretty prominent characters, one of them being Joanne, who is a very unfortunate man who resembles Slenderman, and he slinks through the city committing murder, and who also can't die no matter how many times he throws himself off buildings. And then we have Florian, an accountant accountant who is part of the family who built this city, and Joanne becomes very fascinated with him when he notices some sorcery happening with him, and he begins to stalk him. Unfortunately, I found this plot to be just okay. I would say it's very solid and brings our characters together and gives valid and easy to recognize reasons for them to do what they do. The author does such a great job at the start of this novel building up this fear. The environment in this is so slimy, and it's in like this factory city, so it definitely reminds me of like a dark London kind of Jack the Ripper era. But once our main characters find each other, a romance blossoms, and I wanted to jump ship. It is a twisted romance, but I feel like it should have either went all the way to the erotica route or not have been there at all, because it hovered in this awkward stage, and I was loving the gritty independent monster story that we were getting. But then love blossomed and hands started touching and being pulled away quickly, and it wasn't scary anymore. I ended up giving this one 2 out of 5 stars. I do feel like I will be in the minority for this one. I see a lot of people enjoying it, and even though I loved the setting of this, the plot and characters fell flat for me. Alrighty, so those are all the books that I read in April. Tell me down below what books that you read, because I would love to know. Go ahead and give this video a big thumbs up because it helps me out so much, and don't forget to subscribe. I upload videos every single week. Follow me on Instagram at Holly Hearts Books and on Twitter at Holly Niece, and until we meet again, happy reading.